Hey there, horror movie tea sippers.
The following podcast episode will contain spoilers for the movie we are about to review. If you have not seen the movie and do not wish to have anything ruined prematurely, please do not continue to watch or listen until you have seen the movie.
And welcome to the Horror Movie Tea Podcast. Today we are covering Lake Placid, which is the last movie for Stay Out of the Water Mother. But before we go into the review, let's grab our cups and talk about tea. Today, and brought to you by the Republic of Tea, I am drinking the Crown, the Princess's Peach Bellini tea.
That one is good.
It is. Yeah, if anyone has been listening for a while, you know that this is a favorite. It's got black tea, peach, apricot, vanilla cream, and champagne flavors, monk fruit, and peach bits.
And I am drinking Republic of Tea's cinnamon vanilla.
Tasty.
And it's got caffeine-free rooibos, natural cinnamon, and vanilla flavors.
And thank you, as always, to the Republic of Tea for allowing us to continue to do what we love. And for our tea sippers, brew yourself a cup of tea, sit back, relax, and we hope you enjoy the review. So, for the summary, a sheriff, a fish and game officer, and a paleontologist try to stop a humongous crocodile who is killing residents in Black Lake, Maine. And I did that one, so haha. No credit to IMDb.
None for you.
None for you. So for entertainment, I would rate it a 7. I will say possibly nostalgia glasses because I did watch this movie when I was a little bit younger. So it's like I already kind of had an idea, but like rewatching it, the movie was actually better rewatching it as an adult than I remember it being as a kid.
I got more out of it.
Yeah, I think it's maybe the jokes just hit better.
I think so.
Because there were like a couple of jokes that I like laughed out loud.
Yeah.
Which, watching it previously, I don't remember laughing out loud. I was more traumatized by the gore. Watching it, you can very much tell the influence that Jaws had on it. It feels very much like Jaws in a lot of ways, like the underwater scenes, like how the cinematography, how the crocodile kills, the camera shots, and then also like Jaws has some good comedy, and so does like Placid. Yeah. The comedy is a little bit different. Well, not that much different though.
Not much.
Yeah, because like in Jaws, when they're on the boat and they're all kind of like shitting on each other, like that's very much like the Lake Placid humor.
Yes.
But yeah, it's a pretty good, strong cast. I love the characters' sassiness, and especially Mrs. Bickerman. And the fact that her name is Bickerman, I mean, come on. And all the characters are memorable. Like, rewatching it, I was like even, like, I hadn't watched it in, like, 15, 20 years? Oh, it hurts. And I could still be like, oh, yeah, I remember that character. I remember that character. It's just, like, they're, like, very varied and distinct. And then the story, I will say, is very similar to Jaws, where it's like, this animal is killing people and we're trying to find out like what's going on or whatever, but not as political. The CG, the CG is okay. Like for being a 90s movie, it's not terrible, but
it's definitely dated though.
Yeah. I'm definitely glad that they don't use CG a whole lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot more practical effects. But while a shorter movie, I am glad that they didn't push it to be longer. It feels like it's the right length where, like, you can, like, it's long enough for them to have fun with the story, but with it being shorter, they're able to keep it exciting and interesting. Because, I mean, it starts off with a bang.
Yeah.
And yeah, it has slower scenes, but there's not really any scenes that I'm like bored.
Well, any longer and it would have felt like the people were way more incompetent than they should have been.
Yeah.
Like it's taking way too long to find this
That's very
creature
true.
and get it out of the lake. Like,
Yeah.
what are they doing?
Yeah. And I will say they do the tense scenes very well, where even like knowing what was going to happen, I still like on the edge of my seat, like, come on, come on, come on. And that's impressive when you can watch a movie multiple times and the tense scenes still like get you. Like, that's freaking impressive. But I did enjoy the fun twist at the end about there being a second crocodile. Like, I have doubts that it took them that long.
Well, it
figure it
made
out.
some things make more sense. But we'll get to that later.
Okay. Because it's like whenever she's like feeding it, you would think that it'd be like both of them, but
Not necessarily. Alternating food schedule.
regardless, this is a really fun stay out of the water movie. As far as like stay out of the water movies goes, I feel like this is a classic for me. It's like I wouldn't watch it all the time because then the jokes start, being
get
less
stale.
funny. But it's like watching it once in a while, and of course it's got Betty White in it.
Yeah, rest in peace.
But it's like it's a very fun movie.
Yeah.
But not like in a stupid way, just like it's just I don't know, it's just like a theme park ride. It's just you just enjoy watching it.
Yeah. I would give it a 7.25.
Oh, a little higher than me.
And a little higher than Anaconda was for me. I prefer this one over that movie.
Yes, it's definitely higher than Anaconda.
I like them both, but given the choice between the two, I would definitely go for this one. That being said, there were some things in the realism that, of course, brought it down, as usual for me. I didn't realize growing up how big of a jerk pretty much every character was.
See, I
especially
was
to each
living
other.
for it. I'm like, oh yeah,
So you're like, everyone's an a-hole.
they really are.
Everyone in this movie is an a-hole.
It's so true.
And you kind of get where the girl's coming from, because she's super angry at the situation and
Yeah.
why she's there and what happened with her relationship and everything. And horrible friend is a horrible friend.
Yeah, but the sheriff, I put him in the
God.
realism.
So, yeah. I think the reason why it didn't quite hit the same notes for me as Jaws did is they showed it like right off the bat. Like the kills and everything, there wasn't any mystery as to what it was or anything like that. It was, this is what it is, and it's definitely there.
Yeah.
And a lot of that, I'm somewhat grateful to it because it cut out a lot of the BS of there's evidence of something being here. Why are people not paying attention to it? But at the same time, it leaned into it super, super fast. And that was because the sheriff was the one that witnessed the death. Like right off the bat.
Yeah, which the gore in this movie, I mean, you don't see a lot of gore, but whenever it shows
it was
it's
fairly
like,
decent.
man.
Yeah. Yeah, they didn't play around with it.
Like the first scene, honestly, that made the movie really scary for me when I very first watched it. And I mean, I was 10, 11.
Yeah.
when
It
I
was
watched
scarier as a kid, for sure.
Yeah.
Watching it this time around, I was laughing a hell of a lot more.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone's an a-hole. There's a little bit of progression, character development-wise, but not much. Everyone's still an a-hole
Yeah.
at the end of it, and they're still sniping at each other by the end, but it becomes a bit more friendly barbs.
Yeah, there's not a lot of character growth in this
There's
movie.
not
It's
much.
very much more like
Yeah.
monster
They're very
feature
focused.
based. Yeah.
They're very, very focused in this one.
Which is fine. Like, there doesn't have to be character growth in every movie.
There's a bunch of stuff in here, realism-wise, that doesn't quite add up. There's a lot of common sense things, or lack thereof, rather, that don't quite hit the right note for me.
Mm-hmm.
And just make me so frustrated when I watch it. But it is an entertaining movie. But there's not much to the realism.
Yeah.
You gotta suspend reality for this one, for sure.
Yeah.
So.
It's kind of like, as far as the creature feature part goes, it's a lot like Anaconda and Jaws, where it just, like, over-exaggerates the facts.
Yes. Very much so. It just likes to stretch everything.
Okay, so for realism, I gave it a 2.5. So as far as the gore, overall, like, not being too nitpicky, but looking at the overhead, like, all of the goriness, it's pretty good. Like, especially, especially, like, the first kill. Like, you can literally see, like, the intestines and the guts, and, like, they're very detailed with that one.
As far as the gore itself, yes.
Yes. The characters' reactions are pretty believable overall, as long as you believe that all of them would be assholes like that. But, like, just in general, I don't know, it's like I can see the reactions happening in that circumstances. Yeah. It's not like...
Shock is a big one, and they portray that well.
Yeah, it's like, it's right in the middle of not being too underdone and not being too overdone.
Yes.
The sheriff mentioned crocodiles don't swim in salt water, and I looked it up, and that's false. So crocodiles, okay, so there's both saltwater and freshwater crocodiles, and while freshwater crocodiles can technically go into saltwater, they tend to stay farther upstream because saltwater crocodiles have adapted to be a lot larger than their freshwater counterparts, so it's more dangerous for them. But it's not like they would die if they... Well, they would die in other ways. It wouldn't be from the water.
Yeah. It's not like they breathe in the water. They still breathe air.
But as a caveat, it is correct that there are no crocodiles in Maine.
Yes.
Crocodiles can only survive short periods in cold water. But funny enough, there are alligators in Maine. Yeah.
Interesting.
So, but, like, it was kind of... The information I was reading in that area specifically was a little bit mixed. Because they're like, yeah, there's alligators, but they're mostly in captivity. But there's for sure no crocodiles.
Yeah.
Because it's just too cold.
Yeah.
And then Hector mentioned that crocodiles are curious and attracted to noise. When I looked it up, it seemed to be kind of a mixed bag. Mm-hmm. When they researched it, in most cases, a crocodile is actually so afraid of humans it will keep away if there's, like, yelling or splashing. But there were a few cases where the crocodiles were curious and wanted to investigate.
Now, the reason they weren't afraid could potentially be because of the old lady feeding them constantly. They didn't develop that inherent fear.
That's a very good point. I didn't think about that.
Yes.
Another thing is they said crocodiles don't attack underwater. Crocodiles do,
BS.
in fact, attack underwater.
Often.
It's like if you've seen any documentary...
It's kind of their MO.
Yeah, it's like... yeah, so it was very dumb for them to be swimming, looking for it. Like, yeah.
Oh, there's a lot more. There's a lot more than just that.
Yeah. And then I put Sheriff Hank as unrealistic with how prone he was to try and hurt Hector. In general, I can't imagine someone being promoted or elected as sheriff with having a violent streak like that. Like, he was pretty prone. Now, if it's a small town and they're like, this is all we've got.
Did seem to be a small town with not much to
so that's kind of up in the air.
From.
So it depends on how many options they have.
It's on the outlying realm of possibility, but I can still see it happening.
Yeah, like I can see it happening in a few possibilities, but it's definitely stretching it.
Well, and it was a high stress situation too that he's not normally involved in. So he might not normally be like that.
That's true.
It seems to be a very small, very quiet town.
Yeah. But I will say it is impressive. I can from watching the movie, you can tell that they watched footage of crocodiles attacking, because the way that they animate them and have them attack is very similar, like a lot in common. It's really like the facts themselves that they got wrong. And then I know this is this is kind of up for debate, because I know you were kind of sounding going another way, but them not knowing about the second crocodile seemed like kind of a stretch, at least for me, especially since Mrs. Bickerman was feeding both of them. So it's like, yeah, maybe whenever she was feeding the one crocodile, they're like, oh, you know, but it's like if they see more of her animals missing, then I don't know. I just feel like that it was a teeny tiny bit of a stretch. But that's all
I could see it for a couple different reasons. So, normally, again, we're dealing with reptiles and amphibians here. They don't need to be fed that often.
Yeah.
They don't need to eat that often, especially big meals like a cow or a moose, which they found the head of at one point. So, it would not have been attacking that much. The fact that they showed babies at the very end.
Your little babies.
They were adorable. That could indicate that some of the attacks were territorial. Because they're one of the they're one of the few reptiles that actually do defend their nest and their young for a while at least. So I could kind of sort of see that, and it made a bit more sense that there was a second one because of that. So if one had just eaten a person, let's say, then it wouldn't have been hungry for a cow. Or for part of a cow, at least. That being said, just about everything else was BS. I give it a 1.
We're pretty close.
So we'll start at the beginning.
Yeah. Oh no.
Because pretty much everything I wrote here was about realism. So, in the very, very beginning, they should have been able to see a big shadow behind or under him as he was grabbed by the diver, when he was, like, pulled out of the beaver area. Mm-hmm. God, I'm getting messages. Go. Wait, no! No! There. Okay. The death scene was also ridiculous and not indicative of a croc attack. Because normally they grab their prey, pull them under, and like drown them. Usually with spinning involved. Mm-hmm. Like it's a death roll.
Yeah, it's to disorient them and drown them and tear them apart.
Yes. Lots of things. Yeah. Lots of reasons why they spin. And
I don't think they showed the spinning attack at all.
Not at all. Not once.
So maybe they didn't watch that much footage of crocodile.
Not a single time did they show that at all in the movie. The sheriff should have said it was an ongoing investigation and cannot discuss details, but that there was an accident, so people should stay away until the investigation is complete, instead of giving as much detail as he did to the girl in the town. That could spread panic. If he gave too much detail, but also dismissing it outright, that could potentially bring a whole bunch of people to the area and make it even harder on them to contain the situation.
He wasn't that good of a sheriff.
He was not that great.
Yep.
I also love how Betty White, that's the old lady there, confesses to murder of her husband, and no one even thinks to check if there was a body buried, to check on her story, start an investigation. There's a sheriff there in the room, and she just confessed to murder.
Yeah.
There's no arrest, there's no checking up on her story, no checking of records or anything to see if he had a death certificate and maybe she's just kind of going senile. Nothing. So that's cool and definitely how the law works. There were also a couple accounts of assaulting an officer that didn't get mentioned at all.
Yeah.
And they're slapping the sheriff for tossing the head at her.
That was really funny,
That was hilarious and great for comedy. But, no, that would be assaulting an officer. And he would not have let that stand, especially with his temperament the way it was. No. Dude sees the giant tip of a tail and decides it's best to go ahead and swim after it. No. The guys that are diving also suck at the buddy system, which is supposed to be a thing for safety especially, but, you know, if one of them gets attacked, the other's gonna know absolutely nothing. So this is fine. Especially in water that you can't even really see in.
Yeah.
There was next to no visibility in that lake.
Yeah, that's scary water.
Yeah, no. They're gonna stick together. The head chomp was hilarious, though. Not at all accurate, but hilarious. They really aren't cold weather animals at all. They haven't evolved that way. If maybe they were, if I could talk correctly, Jesus. Maybe if they were a different type of crocodile that is more known to tolerate wider ranges of temperatures.
Well, it's interesting because whenever I was reading, it seemed like crocodiles weren't, like, they couldn't really tolerate the cold, but alligators could. But
Yeah.
I don't know to what extent.
Yeah, they might have evolved to do that. But there are some crocodiles that live, like, further south in the southern hemisphere, around, like, Australia, that might be able to tolerate it a bit more. But they said it was some kind of Asiatic crocodile. So I feel like that would be a little closer to, like, the equator and all.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't be able to tolerate the cold that Maine brings. Now, the lady made it sound like they migrate there, and they're not there all the time. But where would they go?
Yeah, and it's like, and why would they migrate if the water stays pretty temperament, like where they are, like if it's close to the equator, then why would they migrate
Yeah.
that far at least?
Yeah.
Like, I can imagine, like going to different areas are better for breeding or raising their babies or whatever, but, like, for temperature-wise, like, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, no, they're not birds. They don't just go, oh, well, winter's coming, so let's head south. No, they find a place, they make that their territory, and that's where they stay. So that didn't make much sense there. So even if the crocodiles alternated eating people and bears and cows and things, there was still more death there and eating of prey than should have been there.
I should have looked up how often crocodiles need to eat, because I can't imagine it being as long as snakes. But, like, maybe, like, once a week they need to eat or something like that.
Yeah, it's about once every week to 2 weeks, I believe. I had looked it up at one point. It's not quite as often, but if it's a big meal, they can go a lot longer. And they're perfectly fine. But they're in a lake, right? So efficient. But they're in a lake in the middle of freaking nowhere. They have no shortage of food, and the lady is feeding them. No. They're also a lot bigger than they should have been.
Oh, yeah.
Max size of a saltwater croc is about 23 feet. So a 30-foot croc is ridiculous.
Though, I mean, 23 feet, that's terrifying. Like, that's the size of a great white shark.
Huge. That is huge.
Yeah, like, you would not be happy if you saw one. That'd be a very bad day.
A small one is death.
Yeah.
A 23-foot one is a huge nope. Don't go anywhere near that body of water.
Well, people in Florida are like, nah, this is a Tuesday for me.
They go swimming with them and pet them on the head. The croc was less than 2 feet from the sheriff at one point, and he missed the shot when he was shooting at it.
It's hard to miss. It's
less
huge.
than 2 feet away, a target that size, and you miss? No.
He obviously hasn't been in many, like, high-stress situations like that.
How do you miss a target that size from 2 feet?
Yeah. I think he just panicked. But yeah, no,
Movie's
it's
got a
ridiculous.
movie.
Yeah.
That's what it was, is Movies Got a Movie. They wanted to add a little bit of extra drama. That's all it was.
Yep.
Also, bullshit, she was out swimming a croc.
Yeah.
When
real.
she dove over into the water area to try to hide in the submerged trees.
Yeah,
And
that whole scene, I was like, I'm just gonna pretend it
that whole
doesn't exist.
scene was
'cause,
BS.
like whenever it turned and was like nah on the branch.
Well, the whole helicopter attack thing, the entire thing at the end was complete BS. And the old lady feeding the baby crocodiles with bread would not work. Bread is not part of their diet.
Yeah, they wouldn't be getting very much nutrition from that.
They are carnivores. So eating bread would not go well with their system at all. They are opportunists, so they'll eat whatever they can, but it would do nothing for them nutrition-wise. So, but that's what I got.
Yeah, like overall, it's a very fun, like, don't get in the water movie.
It's entertaining.
And then I like the twist, and then the tension works best during like a first viewing.
There's
but
a lot of good comedy.
yeah, and then the comedy is still like enjoyable over like multiple views as long as you spread them out.
But not realistic in the slightest.
Nope. I actually have not seen any of their Lake Placid movies, so I'm kind of excited that and hoping that we will continue this and watch the others.
We should.
I'm sure they get more ridiculous.
They get
from here.
more ridiculous for sure. 100%.
But thank you so much for joining us today. And please comment on what you thought of the movie. If you'd like to recommend a movie, game, or tea and keep up to date with our content, you can find us on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Discord, TikTok, and most places you listen to podcasts.
And if you'd like to support the podcast, please subscribe, like, and share our content. If you'd like to support us monetarily, we do have our Teespring and our PayPal donate button available, and we have our affiliate link with Republic of Tea. It does not affect the price of the tea. It just allows us to continue to do what we love. And you can find all of the sites mentioned linked below. And until the next time, guys, stay safe and stay spoopy.
Bye.
Bye.